Atlassian Connect in action. So I've been working on Connect for the past few months, and today I'm going to show you how to write an Atlassian Connect add-on. And to do that, I'm going to use Play. Does anyone know the Play framework at all here? Not many? So the Play framework is a web framework developed in Scala that targets both Scala developers and Java developers. So for this presentation, we're going to be using Java. As I assume most of you guys know more Java than Scala. And we're going to build a Confluence macro. So we're going to do that in 3 steps. Well, first, of course, we're going to create a simple Play app. And I'm going to try and show you what a Play app involves and how you can make it do something. We're going to turn that into a very simple add-on that actually doesn't do anything, but it's going to introduce the Play module I wrote to actually help you write Atlassian Connect add-ons. And we're going to define our macro to actually make our plugin do something. So let's get coding. That's the first time I do a presentation with live code and stuff, so I hope nothing breaks. All right, and I go in the terminal. Everyone can read that fine? Hold on. Yeah, is that fine as well at the background? Okay, cool. So already creating a Play app, I have Play installed obviously already. That's no rocket science to install, so I'm not going to go through that. Creating a new Play app is as simple as this. Oh, if I knew how to type, that would be better. The name is fine, and we want a Java application. As I said, you could write a Scala application, and that's it. Our application is created. It's there. It's called Atlassian. But for this purpose, I've prepared before this guy. It's got a bit more stuff to it. So the version I have right now is the exact same version I've just created with Play. So just so that you know, I'm not cheating. I can start the Play console. Takes 10 bits, starting Java in the background. And there I am. And I can run my Play app. So go in the browser, and you can see that it actually is compiling on the fly here. Some Scala sources, some Java sources. It's a bit of a mix, and we're going to see why in a minute. So this screen resolution doesn't, help very much, but we have our first Play app. That was as simple as that. Nothing really interesting here. There's the Play documentation. That's what you get at first. All fine. Now, let's have a look at what the code behind that looks like. So I'm going to just stop it for a minute. Do I have? No, I don't have the history. And I'm going to create the IDEA configuration. There's a nice with sources so that you get the sources of the libraries you're going to be using. And I should be able to open that in IDEA now. Oh, very nice idea. Never mind. Open. Yeah, there, I have it here. So there we have our Play project. So it's plenty of files, Java, Scala, some configurations. I'm going to show you the roots files, which is where everything starts for a Play app. That's how Play defines how you handle HTTP requests. So fairly simple syntax. You have a get on slash, and then you call this controller. This controller is implemented in Java. We're going to see that in a second. Let me run the app again here. That file you might not see it, but it's actually Scala code. As I said, Play is implemented in Scala, uses a DSL. And the nice thing about that is that that file is actually compiled. So if you make a mistake or anything, let's do this, and you reload, you see a compilation error. So you have a lot of feedback from compilation about what you're doing, even in files that looks like configuration. And so I can do that again, and I'm back, I'm fine. The thing you might notice here as well is I didn't need to go to a compile phase to anything. The Play console, when I run the app, actually does all of that for me. I just refresh in the browser, and I have what I expect, my updates. So let's have a look at what the controller is like. Application.java. So this index method is very simple. You notice that it's a static method. Again, Play using Scala in the background is very much functional, and functional in Java translates a lot in statics. A bit counterintuitive when you're not used to it, or when you're used to other Java web framework, but you get used to it fairly quickly, I'd say. There's a bit of a compilation error. I don't know why IDEA tends to not like my Scala right now, for some reason. That's because there's a bit of mix and match. But IDEA has a pretty good integration that usually works, I can tell you. So what this method does is fairly simple. It returns OK, which means that it's going to be an HTTP 200, and then it renders a template, which is our index template here. And let's go check out our template. So template, again, it's Scala code, but you don't really have to know Scala. It's a fairly, well, I'm assuming that everyone here would understand that template without knowing any of the Scala code. It actually has one parameter, which is nice, because again, you compile, you know the parameters that are available to you. It uses another template called main, which has a title and adds some HTML body. And obviously, I can change that here. And I changed the, well, you may have or may not have noticed, but it changed the whole documentation here. I can break it. Yeah, hold on. I can break it, the compilation error shows, and we're happy, because it's very easy. One thing I wanted to show as well is that even in your Java classes, obviously, compilation error shows right in the browser with a simple refresh. So Play is pretty cool like that. It's just, you write your app, start the server, update, refresh, until you get what you actually expect. So very easy to work with and very convenient. Okay, so that was a very quick view of Play and the app and how you can use Play as a developer. Now, just before I make it an actual Connect add-on, I'm going to talk to you about the Play module I wrote and what it brings on top of the Play app so that you actually can build your Connect add-on. It will, for you, automatically create RSA key pair so that you can use them for OAuth signing and for request to the host application on which you're going to install your add-on. It's going to automatically install the add-on on locally running instances. This way, if you run a Confluence or Jira instance with the Connect framework on your local machine, whenever you refresh, the plugin is automatically installed. You don't have to actually do anything, and you can see the changes directly in Jira or Confluence. It provides an add-on descriptor template so that you don't have to worry about all the specific Connect descriptor modules, and it's generated for you. It adds a nice annotation so that you can validate OAuth incoming requests from the host application and make sure that you're talking to an expected host and that the request has not been tampered with. This also provides a nice way to handle multi-tenancy because you know which host you're talking to. And it also provides a way to make REST calls back to that host with signing the requests with auth using the RSA keys that it's generated, and some more little features here that are quite nice. And last but not least, it provides, it embeds AUI so that you can actually integrate easily AUI into your add-on. Okay, then back to the console again, and that's where I'm going to cheat a tiny bit, and I'm going to check out version 2, 2.5 even. Restart the console. That's the part that takes the most time. Update idea. Done, and yeah, awesome, thank you, idea. Now, one thing I didn't mention before is that as Play is using Scala, it uses also SBT, which is a simple build tool, which is a fairly widely used build tool for Scala project. And that's where, if you're going to build a Connect application, you want to start. So what you're going to want to do is add that line, which is the Connect jar. It's just a jar with Java classes and compiled Java classes and Scala classes. And obviously, you want to tell it that, we might want to find that on the Atlassian repository. I've added also the local repositories. There's no reason to go online when you have things locally in another repository. SBT uses Ivy in the background. That's why it understands Maven, but it doesn't use the actual local Maven repository. Other things you're going to need to do is change some configuration. So basically define a database. The module will store some information from you, for you. Namely, that information is the host registration. So whenever you install your plugin into a Confluence instance, or it could be a Jira instance as well, this instance is going to send you back some information on a webhook. You listen to that, and you get the ID of the instance, its public key for host signing, and its space URL, which are sort of the three most important components so that you can actually talk back to that application and make sure that it's talking to you in the right way. We enable ebin, which is the ORM that Play uses by default. I've enabled debug on the module so that we can see some of the stuff in the console. And I've added a key and a name to my plugin. Just on the database front, I just want to point out that file as well that was copied from the module. That's basically creating the table that's needed for storing that host information. Play uses this evolutions framework where you can have as many SQL scripts as you want, 1, 2, 3, 4, with ups and downs, and so that it tracks the state of the database for you, basically, based on that. You can read more about that on the Play documentation. It's fairly straightforward, and it's pretty nice. And to my knowledge, that's also actually compiled as Scala code in the background. So now that we have that, we're going to be able to actually start the module. That's as simple as that, and we should have our default basic Connect add-on. Just before I show you that, I have a running Confluence instance here, and I'm going to show you that I have one user install add-on. That's a stock Confluence 5.1 I have running, and it's running there. So there's some logs here. So I'm going to run my application, go there. It should be compiling. Oh, of course, my database right now is empty, so it's telling me that it needs to actually run those scripts I've imported. So I just have this button here. I can click, and there I am. I have my module. So the home page here is it's got some documentation for the module itself and some useful links to Atlassian Connect. Hold on, why is the mouse not working? Never mind. The 8DG and the play documentation as well. So it's a nice way for you to have that at reach of hand when you start your app. One thing you might want to see is that if I do a request on that same URL, but with a different accept header, application XML, what I get is actually a plugin descriptor. So that's the default plugin descriptor that the module will generate for you with all the public key setup, the container, the remote plugin container, which is basically I'm an Atlassian Connect add-on. Here's my URL where you can reach me at. Here's my public key that I'm going to be using for OAuth. And the webhook, which is basically when I get installed into a Confluence instance, just ping me back here, and I can store the information I get in my database so that I can then, on subsequent requests, talk back to you. So what we should have seen as well in the console, with that resolution, it's maybe if I do that, it's a bit easier. Can you still see if I do that? Just let me know. There's a lot of stuff here, but I'm going to try and, So the internal server here we see here is actually the evolution scripts we needed to run. And after that, we can see AC logs. So basically those ones where the Connect module actually gave us some information. So that it resolved the base URL, it generated a key pair for OAuth signing. This key pair has been put in some files at the root of the project. Those files should never go into your DVCS. So we also added those two files into your git ignore directly for you so that you don't actually commit them by accident. And this sort of showing you the keys it's using, because that could be tricky when you have the wrong keys and you don't know why OAuth is giving you a signature invalid and stuff. You might want to check out the logs, make sure that you have everything correct there. And it scans for application, as I told you before. So it's found a Confluence instance. It's posting the URL to the Confluence instance saying, well, I have a new plugin I want to install. And we can see that down there, the plugin has been successfully installed on Confluence. And someone says registering host application. So that means that the Confluence instance gave us back the information we needed to enable the two-way communication between the two of us. And I didn't have to do anything but just refresh the browser to actually do that. So now we should be able to see that in Confluence. If I refresh that guy, I should have my add-on. Yes. Here, with two modules enabled, the container and registration webhook. And that's my add-on for now. It doesn't do anything. It's just the empty add-on. I just configured my play module to do that. So now that we have that, we can actually make it do something, which is the interesting bit that you guys want to do. So again, I'm going to cheat a tiny bit. V3. 3. Awesome. Works. Starting the console again. Thankfully, you don't have to actually do that when you don't check out code every second minute. Update the IDEA configuration. And I'm going to run it in the background where I show you what I've changed. Oh, I just realized that I forgot to show you that file before, which is a fairly important file. You obviously need to tell Play that it's going to need the roots from the module you just installed. So that's how you do it. The syntax is just include on slash, and you could include them on whatever URL you want, of ac.roots, so Atlassian Connect roots. I should have shown you that just a step before, sorry about that. Anyways, now what we're doing is we're overriding slash. So by default, there is a root for slash for the base URL in the Atlassian Connect one. And because we want to add modules now, we're going to want to create our own descriptor. So we're going to want to override slash, which I have done in application.index. There it is. I'm using the AC controller. There's a method here to help me a tiny bit so that you can deliver different content, whether you request HTML or application XML. Here, I'm just returning the descriptor both times. This way, we can see that on the browser directly. And then I supply a descriptor, which is basically a template, as we've seen before. So that's my descriptor template, which actually uses the base descriptor from the Connect module so that the container and the webhook are taken care of for me. And I can just fill in my plugin info section and my modules I want to write. So you can see that here we have the permission create OAuth link. We should make sure that we have that one. Otherwise, the OAuth link between the two applications is not going to be allowed, and it's not going to be created for you. Depending on what you're going to be doing, you might and you will want to add other permissions that are requested by your plugin for being installed in Confluence instances. I'm going to show you one of those in a minute. So we defined our macro, which is almost not different than the usual macro in Confluence for those who have written some, except that it's called macro page. It's a specific Atlassian Connect module type. And a macro page is pretty much a macro, but it's going to run there as an iframe inside Confluence and request the URL that's here. And that URL is just the link, the way play actually links back to the controller you want to execute, and we resolve that to the correct URL based on the roots file. So if we go back to the roots file, I've also added demo as, this is my demo macro, and it's on /demo. And in application, my demo macro is just results OK, HTTP 200 again, and I render a demo template. Oh, I don't have this one in my history. So the demo template, similar to the templates we had before, we use AC page for the iframe. So what AC page brings you, I'm just going to jump to the source code of AC page here. It's just a general template you want for an iframe. And the most important parts are those guys, the script and the style sheet you want to include in your iframe so that it actually is embedded seamlessly into your Confluence instance. And what it needs to do is actually link those CSS and JavaScript from the instance you're actually being loaded into. So that's why we have that template, so that you don't have to worry about it. You just say, yeah, I want an AC page, and I'm in the right context, and it's done for me. Here, we also included AUI, so as a template that's provided by the Connect module again. This way, we have AUI available to us in the iframe. And the body of the iframe is just, we're going to display a success AUI message with whatever message we pass as a parameter to the macro. Fairly simple and straightforward. So let's see what it looks like. I'm just going to refresh that guy. So here we should now see the plugin descriptor, or the add-on descriptor, instead of that page, because I've overwrote the / configuration in my roots file, which is what happens. Not to worry, you can still access the documentation. I'm just going to show you. It's available at @connect. So if I do that, I can get back to the documentation and have all the links I need at reach of hand. And that documentation is only going to get that URL is only going to be available in dev mode in play. When you're going into production, that's going to return a 404. So here is my descriptor that was created from my template, and you can see that the container and the webhook are still there, and I'm fine. So that should have installed the plugin into Confluence, and hopefully, okay, modules are hidden. I have more modules. Just note that there's 4 modules, and we just added 1 module, the macro, because the plugin that you can see in Confluence is not an exact mapping of your plugin. We do have sort of a local instance of a plugin that manages the communication between the Confluence instance and your remote connect add-on. So don't worry about those numbers here too much. And that means in my Confluence instance, I should now be able to use my demo macro. Oh, come on. I say, okay, Confluence. Why? Command A doesn't work. Never mind. Demo is there. Hello. Class camp. Save. And there we go. Our macro is rendering an AUI success message as an iframe, so it's fairly seamless. Got the same style and guidelines as used by Confluence. We just see that there's this guide that's telling us that it was actually loaded by the Atlassian demo plugin, so that there's a bit of a hint as to where that content comes from. Okay, so we have our plugin, and it actually does something, even though it doesn't do much. Next step is, what if I wanted to actually talk back to my Confluence instance and actually get some information from it? And I'm going to show you how the module actually can help you do that. So again, cheating a bit. V4 this time, 0.2. And I'm gonna run it. Yeah. So here, what's changed is mostly this guy. So in the context of, or in the body of the controller for my macro, I've actually now make a REST call back to my Confluence instance. And that's actually here, AC, that's where it starts, ac.url. So Play comes with a web service library, and what you would do in Play is, if you want to make a REST call, is ws.url, ws being the web service library provider used by Play, and then you can make sort of any REST call. Here we just have a shortcut for Atlassian connect.url that is a shortcut so that basically, I can jump to the source code, yes. What it does is it first makes sure that you're not talking to an absolute URL, but a relative URL. It's going to prepend to it the base URL of the host you're talking to right now. And it's going to set a timeout, because you want to set a timeout, not that plugins are on one instance and the Confluence instance is somewhere else. You don't know what's happening on the network. You might have issues. Don't forget timeouts. They're important. Follow redirects false. Otherwise, with OAuth, you're going to have some signature invalid surprises with redirects. We sign the request with OAuth, so it's done for you. We pick up your keys, pick up the current user the request has been made and then off you go, just the same way as you would do it with Play otherwise. You can continue to build your request. So there's the URL here. That's the Confluence REST API that I use to actually gather some information about users. I just say that I want JSON, and I do a get. And based on that, then I can, on the response, when it comes back, basically I can map with functions. So basically here, the only thing I'm doing is on 200, I'm just parsing some JSON and getting the full name and the avatar URL of the user name I've been given. And otherwise, I just send a bad request. So we can see that happening here. Now, if I refresh that guy, I should have a nice error message. It's taking a tiny bit of time because here in the background it's compiling, making sure everything is up to date. And obviously there's no user called hello Atlassian user. So if I edit, and if I go for, ooh, oh, come on, myself, there we go. So I actually have the iframe going to my Connect add-on. My Connect add-on is talking back to Confluence and getting the information it requires to actually render a useful macro. So that's about it for the play module. As you can see, the idea, very nice keynote, sorry, is that we take care of all sort of the plumbing for you. You don't have to worry about OAuth and stuff. Get the module set up, and then off you go. You can actually start building your plugin, your Connect add-on, you know, making it do something useful so that you can, well, build your own existing plugins features into our products. So the code for the module is at that URL on Bitbucket. It's open source. There's a fairly good README that you know, tells all the steps I've taken today to show you how to actually make your Play app a Connect add-on. So hopefully they're enough to get you started. If they're not, just raise issue, ping me, let me know, and then I'll try and update it. So that's about it for me today. I hope that it gives you enough information to start your add-on with Play, and that Play might be something you're interested in as a framework for building your add-ons. Thank you.